The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Invisible Influence Series. If you're ready to massively increase your sales by leveraging the power of subconscious persuasion, then make sure you text the word COMPEL to 411321. That's COMPEL to 411321. And if you're outside of the United States, then use WhatsApp and text the word COMPEL to 1-909-741-1321. Make sure you put in your best email address because that's how we'll deliver the goodies. Welcome to the Influencer's Edge. This is the place where you come to get the latest breakthroughs, cutting-edge insights, tools, and techniques to leapfrog over the pack in sales, persuasion, and influence. Be sure you visit our website at www.theinfluencersedge.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now sit back, tune in, and enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Influencer's Edge. To say that my guest today is a superstar would be an incredible understatement. Our guest today is Vanessa Van Edwards. Vanessa is an unbelievable entrepreneur, teacher. Vanessa, I'm just going to take a crack at doing your biography, but it's so long, we may have to cut it short.
Just the highlights, That's enough.
All right. So Vanessa is the lead investigator at Science of People. She is the best-selling author of Captivate, The Science of Succeeding with People, translated into 16 languages. Do you actually have copies of your book in all of those languages?
Yeah, while you're reading, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you the weirdest one. You keep going.
Okay. All right. I'm going to keep going. Look at her charisma already. And she's also the author of Cues, Master the Secret Language of Charismatic Communication. More than 50 million people watch her engage in YouTube tutorials and TEDx talks. She works with entrepreneurs, growing businesses and trillion-dollar companies. I can't even begin to do that. Her groundbreaking workshops and courses have taught 500,000 students worldwide how to succeed in business and life by understanding the hidden dynamics of people. And above all, everything else, if I can just say, you do this while being a mom.
The hardest part.
It's
yes,
the hardest
yes.
part. I don't know how you do this.
Oh my, a 4-year-old and one on the way. I don't know if you can, the bump
goodness.
is there. The bump is there. Wait, can I just show you the funniest thing?
Sure.
So this is my cover, right?
Right.
What would you think that giraffes? Just a bunch of giraffes. So my cover has a picture of this one is my book and I think Bulgarian, and they just picked a bunch of giraffes. I don't know why. No idea.
Why
Yes,
why
that's the translated
giraffes?
one. I don't know. I don't know, but they assure me it's my book, but I don't know why there's a bunch of giraffes
I
on
don't
it.
understand. So I want to ask you a question that I'm sure you've never been asked before.
Oh,
I either read it or seen it. You describe yourself as a recovering awkward person. So
yes.
first and foremost, I find it hard to believe because I've watched your YouTube videos, I watched your TEDx talk where you commanded that stage.
Oh,
I don't. I'm going to take your word on it that you are a recovering awkward person.
yes.
What do you mean in your history that you were awkward, and how has that driven your desire to investigate human behavior and to teach people to be more effective and charismatic communicators?
So what's funny about awkwardness is I think it dresses up as different things. So some people who are awkward, they shut down, they go inward, they become quiet, they become negative, they want to be reclusive. Other people in their awkwardness go loud. They want to be the life of the party, they interrupt, they overtalk. And so what I realize is my awkwardness comes out as social overthinking. So what I mean by this is I get very in my own head, or I used to get very in my own head, where I'd be in a social interaction, and instead of being present, I would be overthinking everything I said, and usually, unfortunately, very negative. Oh, you sound so silly. Oh, why did you say that? You are so boring. And so what would happen was I would get in this very negative cycle in my head. I would also lay in bed at night, replaying every conversation that I'd had during the day. right? And also, a symptom of this, and I actually realized there's research on this, that a lot of people who have social awkwardness or social anxiety, I would misinterpret negative cues, neutral cues as negative. So I had trouble reading neutral faces as negative. So what would happen was I would leave a party or I would leave a meeting and I would turn to my husband and say, I think she's really mad at me. He'd be like, what? What do you mean? I'd be like, did you see her face? And what was happening was, for whatever reason, I'm not very adept at reading nonverbal cues. And so I was assuming
Whoa, whoa,
negativity.
pause.
Yes.
You can't drop that and let me not develop that. To this day, are you still not good at reading
No.
nonverbal cues?
No. So because of this deficit that I discovered, I think I was 22 or 23. I took like a little test and I was misinterpreting all these cues. That's when I set out to learn nonverbal like a language. At the time, I was learning Mandarin and Spanish, and I loved language. And I thought, what if I just try to translate body language into vocab words? And that was how I learned it. So now I feel very adept at it, but I literally speak body language like someone would speak a language. I have to think about structure, I think about vocab words, but I had to fix that skill.
Well, this begs the question, and we're going to dive into our topic cues and charisma for personal development for sales. But this begs the question, how did you get into the state of mind where you were able to stop all that chatter in your head and interpreting people's behavior? Because if you don't get the mindset right, then all of the incredible information you use is just entertainment and a waste of time.
Yes.
How did you correct that mindset, Vanessa?
Okay, so what I had to do for myself, this is going to sound weird, I had to use a displacement tactic. So, you know how when you say to someone, don't think of a pink elephant, and then
Right.
all they think of is doesn't work. So just not overthinking didn't work, right? For years, I tried to tell myself, don't be negative, which doesn't work. Or I try to say, don't overthink, which doesn't work. So instead, I used a displacement tactic, which is I was trying to replace all the negative talk with the formula and the map. So learning nonverbal, learning charisma cues, learning sort of the language of charismatic people, which didn't come naturally to me at all, replaced the overthinking. So instead of thinking, I'm in a conversation, instead of thinking, oh, that sounded really boring, or this is really silly. Instead, I was thinking, I think this person is showing warmth. Wow, they use a lot of hand gestures. They're using a lot of nodding. Okay, warmth. Warmth likes warmth. Okay, I'm going to nod back. I'm going to smile back. I like this person. I want to show them I like this person. And that sounds very calculating, but for me, it was something to do. It gave my brain something to do other than overthink.
Right. I don't think there's anything wrong with calculating if it leads to a result. And obviously it has for you. And for how many people have taken your body language, have
Oh my
enrolled in
goodness.
people school?
So we've had, I think we just counted recently, I think we've had 2.7 million in all of our courses and a couple 100,000 in like our master
Wow.
classes.
We should do
And
you're so busy with it and with a baby on the way at some point, maybe in a year, we should do a episode on being an entrepreneur because obviously
oh,
you're at the top.
yes. And those are actually oddly like very different skill sets, right? Like charisma is its own skill set and entrepreneurship is also a different skill set. So yes, that would be really fun.
Let's dive into charisma. So many
Yes.
people, when they think of charisma, they think of Tony Robbins. He's in front
Yes.
of 50,000 people. He's got everyone on the palm of his hand. He's got this incredible energy. He can go for 18 hours and get people whipped up. And so, would you explode that charisma? And by the way, I think I'm not buttering your bread. I think you have tremendous charisma, particularly when you're on stage. You command the stage. So,
Oh
let's
my
talk
goodness.
about charisma myths.
Okay, yes. Well, first of all, thank you for that kind word. It's not accidental. It's worked. I think Tony Robbins has a natural charisma. What Tony Robbins has done is he's one flavor of charisma. And there is a myth, and I used to believe this myth, that to be charismatic, you had to be the outgoing, full of energy life of the party. You had to dominate the stage, you had to have big body language, big voice. That is one flavor of charisma. That is Tony Robbins. What research has actually found is that there are many flavors of charisma. And in fact, you do not have to be outgoing. You do not have to be life of the party. You don't even have to be high energy to be charismatic. That's one flavor. There's also Powerful, contemplative introverts. There's also compassionate, empathetic healers. Those are all different flavors of charisma. And when they boil down very charismatic people, this is research out of Princeton University, they found that very highly charismatic people, what they're doing is they're ranking high in two specific traits. And they are constantly signaling these traits to the world. The traits are warmth and competence. That highly warm and competent folks are signaling trust, likability, friendliness, but at the very same time, they're signaling competence, power, reliability, and efficiency. So, how you showcase those is different for extroverts and introverts. But really, the only two traits that are important for charisma are warmth and competence.
So you don't necessarily even have to be a great speaker. You can, this is an incredible reverse of what most people think. You don't have to be a great speaker as long as you demonstrate competence and warmth. So let's talk about that, because
Yeah.
I understand warmth, and we'll talk about some of the cues, because that's the name of your latest book, and it is genius. You need to get that book. It's true. What are some of the cues that people can do to give off competence? Because we don't know. If I'm going into a meeting, I don't know. If I don't know this person's track record, I don't know necessarily that they're competent at their job. So how do we cue people that we're competent, and why is competence important? What does it create in that
Yes.
half of the equation?
Yes. So remember that when we're interacting with someone, whether that's someone new or someone we already know, whether that's going into a meeting with someone that we're trying to suss out, there's two questions we're trying to ask. Can I trust you, which is warmth, but the second one is more important, which is competence. Can I rely on you? Competence is actually about, can I rely on what you say you're going to follow through? It's true, and you've done your backup or your resources or your research. So competence is specifically answering the question, you can rely on me. That's what competence is. And I'm going to do what I say I do. Let's talk about the very easiest competence cue. This is one of the fastest ways we decide someone's competence. It's kind of a funny one, which is very highly competent people. They know their stuff. They know their message. They know their values. They can rely on themselves, so they show that you can rely on them. And one way that they signal this is they are congruent with their words and their nonverbal, specifically their hand gestures. So one of the research experiments we did at Science People is we looked at TED Talks. So I love TED Talks. And I was curious with TED Talks, why do some TED Talks go viral and others don't? Here are all these speakers are competent, but some are exceptionally competent, right? Some TED Talks have a couple 100,000 views, couple thousand views, others have millions. And I wanted to know why. So we analyzed thousands of hours of TED Talks, looking at the differences between the most viewed TED Talks and the least viewed TED Talks. So this is purely by view count. What we found is when you lined up the most popular and least popular next to them side by side, there was a striking difference. The most popular TED Talkers were congruent with their gestures. It was like they were speaking to the audience on two tracks. They would say something with their words and outline the word with their hands. So, for example, all the best TED Talks, similarly, they start like this. Today, I want to talk to you about a big idea. I'm going to break it down into three different areas that are going to change your life. They all start with that kind of cadence and specifically gestures. Because if I were going to get on stage and say, today I'm going to talk to you about three ideas and hold up the number five, your brain's like, no, Vanessa, it's five. That is because the brain gives more weight to gestures. When on average, the brain gives 12.5 times more weight to a gesture. So if I say I have a really big idea, and I hold up my fingers like I'm holding a dime, your brain is more likely to believe that it's the size of a dime. That's because it's hard to lie with gestures. So very competent people, they know their stuff so well that they're able to speak to you and outline their words with their gestures. So you'll notice introverts, extroverts, charismatic people, they are using their gestures incredibly purposefully to help your brain understand them.
That makes sense. Let's take a little bit again of I don't know if it's a side turn, but what is the importance of being charismatic? What does it
Hmm.
allow you to achieve? What's the end goal of being charismatic? And then a second little side question. what's the difference between someone who's charismatic and someone who's charming? Is there a difference
Oh,
between the two?
yes. Okay, so what's interesting about the Princeton research is the way they developed the research is they were looking at highly charismatic people were drawn to. And again, those people are high in warmth and competence. Now, usually people have a imbalance of warmth and competence. There are people who are higher in warmth, there are people who are higher in competence. If you're higher in warmth, you're often seen as friendly, trustworthy, likable, but the downside is people don't take you seriously.
Right.
They don't think they can rely on you. They interrupt you, right? If you're high in warmth without enough competence, people don't take your ideas seriously. They interrupt you at work and they don't ask for your opinion. So that's the downside of not hitting the both. If you're high in competence without warmth, and this is actually the dangerous one, most of my students are brilliant. They're high achieving professionals, off the charts in their technical smarts, but somehow they have not caught up in their social smarts. And what they have found is this is direct from the research. High competence without enough warmth leaves people feeling suspicious. So you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you don't have enough warmth, people do not believe in your competence. They do
Wow.
not believe in your ideas. So people are suspicious of you. If you're high in competence without warmth, without that charisma balance, people say you're cold, you're intimidating, you're hard to talk to.
Right.
You have trouble breaking rapport with people, and that's because there's this distance of suspicion. The last category, and this is the worst. What if you have neither warmth nor competence?
Wow.
Right? Neither warmth nor competence is the scary place to be. I think this is where I was for a long time. Neither warmth nor competence means you're pitied, you're ignored, you're underestimated, you're overlooked, you're forgotten. And that's because we need to signal warmth and competence to be remembered. And so what happens is when we get very nervous, like as a social overthinker, I undersignaled. I shut down. I didn't send any cues at all. So people forgot me. They literally could not.
Wow. I find that so hard. I believe you and I
It's
don't
true.
believe you.
It's true. It's true. It's true. It's true.
Your right
And
hand, raise your right hand
this is my
and
right hand.
say,
Yes.
I swear it's true.
I swear it's true. I was awkward. And you know what? I think there's also, remember, I'm in a situation right now where I feel very comfortable. We're having a great discussion. I love this show. We're talking about my favorite topics. So in classroom settings, if you had met me in classroom settings or with my family, yeah, you would have thought, oh, she's charismatic. Ooh. But if you saw me at a nightclub or a bar or a frat party or a barbecue, whew, that's where my awkwardness came out. So you
Wow.
have to also remember, not everyone is awkward in all situations. And so I'm in my comfort zone. But I
Right.
promise, if you and I were to meet at a loud networking event, I would not be charismatic. It would be very hard for me
Wow.
to bring out, and I avoid those. I don't go to those events.
That's very interesting. You bring up an interesting point that charisma can be contextual. There's some
Yes.
people, I know some people who are magnetic in person. They can walk into a room, the air goes out of the room. But I know a couple of people, some of my clients who told me, no problem. But as soon as I get on stage to give a talk, I'm frozen. So you
Yes.
agree it's contextual.
Yes, because okay, if we're gonna go back to your original question of triggers of childhood, where this came from, I had very great experiences in learning environments, in familial environments with my closest friends. I was welcomed and I was accepted. I had some very early bad experiences at school dances, and those were in loud, very boisterous gymnasiums. I had some bad experiences at early birthday parties. That body trauma, or whatever you, however you want to call it, like the
Right.
loudness actually triggers that kind of body feeling where I really have to fight and be like, what is charisma, warmth, and confidence? Like I have to go back to that place. And so I think if you really want to deep dive for yourself, if you think about your earliest awkward social memories, when you didn't feel supported, when you felt scared, when you were rejected, that's going to carry with you even to today, even
Correct.
in a work setting where logically you say, why am I nervous? But your body feels nervous.
Got it. Let's dive into some cues that we can give off. So we've talked about charisma and we've talked about warmth. So what are some of the cues that we can easily, like a takeaway that someone can use today, a viewer and or listener can use today to indicate warmth, particularly if you're
Mm.
not like I want to make this even more challenging for introverts. I'm extraordinarily extroverted. I'm on the
Yes.
extrovert scale to the extreme.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So how do we do it? How does an introvert go about signaling warmth?
I got you. Okay, I love it. So for my introverts, I love my introverts. So I'm actually an ambivert. I'm somewhere in between, but I love my introverts, especially my really smart introverts. Okay, so as an introvert, for warmth, you have more trouble verbalizing warmth, right? Because you typically, and they've actually studied this, introverts speak less words than the average day. So all my warmth is for you is going to be nonverbal, and that is showing warmth. So here are the fastest way to literally warm up a conversation. One, they found a slow triple nod, one, two, three, encourages the other person to speak 67% more. So warmth is all about making someone feel welcomed, acknowledged, heard, encouraged. So the very first thing you can do, and you can do this by the way, if you're on Zoom and you're like on mute, you can even do this. A slow triple nod when you really like a point or you really want to emphasize something is one, two, three. That literally encourages them to speak longer. Just be careful. Don't make it a fast nod. So look at the difference. Slow means I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you,
Oh wow.
versus fast is
And
impatience.
you just shifted your voice tone a little bit.
Yeah,
You went down in register and you softened it.
yeah, right. I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. Versus a fast triple nod is impatience. Uh huh, uh huh, uh huh.
Oh, yes.
So it's a slow triple nod and it's not a bobblehead. So it's not just doing this the
And
entire time.
how do you get people to get rid of speech errors like drives me crazy when I work with my clients or out in public and people go yeah, yeah when they're listening. It drives me up a wall. How do you teach your clients like I'm assuming you also work with super VIP clients, you're working with corporations, etc. How do you get them to eliminate those, I guess you call them speech errors? What would you call them when they're
By the way, I actually don't see clients, which is
okay?
crazy, I
Sorry
know,
about that.
but my awkwardness is not my best around clients. I do much better with students. So you were talking about the difference actually between fillers and vocalizations.
Yes.
This is a really important difference. So vocalizations are an aspect of warmth. A good vocalization is, oh, mm, ah, wow, interesting. Those are all vocalizations. By the way, funny note is women love them, men like them less. That's funny because I will tell you, Paul, I love a vocalization. I
It's
love it.
almost flirtatious the way you do it. There's a line. I know I'm
Line.
curly
It's a
Q
line.
with my questions. How, for women, men know, but for women, particularly in business setting, they have to be careful not to be flirtatious.
I totally agree. And there is a border there, right? Warmth and flirtation is a very fine line. So, vocalizations, yes, they're very warm, so warm they can almost be intimate. So, women typically like hearing and using vocalizations more, men like them less. So, typically, I try to under vocalize in that way because I don't want to annoy someone who doesn't like them. A filler are words that don't serve any purpose or sounds that don't serve any purpose. They're literally filling. Well, so,
Oh,
right.
I want to hear it now.
So first, they're different. Okay, vocalizations that are purposeful, that are adding emphasis or encouraging someone can be great if you feel comfortable doing them. Fillers are not great. The only way that I've known people to be able to combat them is with an app called Ummo. And don't worry, they don't sponsor me. I just like their app. It is literally an app. It records your speech and it pings you and it counts your ums whenever you use a filler word. It's so annoying, it will get you to stop.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that's hilarious, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. So that's indicating warmth. What are some of the cues that we can give? You know, they have the typical one. I can't do it because of the way my green screen is set up, but the typical power pose. What's the difference between power posing and signaling competence? Because the typical thing, hands on your hips, legs, akimbo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So, power posing, I have an interesting relationship with power posing because, yes, it is very powerful, but you can't, let me say this better. I think when Amy Cuddy came out and started talking about power posing, she's right. Yes, expansive body posture is pride. It shows a lot of pride, it shows a lot of power. But I'm not going to, as an ambivert, I'm not going to walk into my meetings like this. I'm here. Hello, everyone. Hello. Nor would you like that.
No.
So, power posing, yes, it can get you in the right mindset in private. What actually I prefer is just expansive posture. And what I mean by this is there's three measurements that matter the most in professional and social settings. These are the measurements that when we're very quickly trying to decide how confident someone is, we're looking at. The very first one is the distance between your earlobe and your shoulder. And that sounds like a very weird measurement. But when someone's anxious, they typically turtle. They lower their chin down, they pull their shoulders up, and they have very little space between their shoulders and their earlobe. And we very quickly, if we see someone on Zoom or on a call go, hey, morning, everyone, they immediately look less confident to us. So first, in your first impression, this is for competence, right? This is an aspect of confidence or competence, is maximizing the distance between your shoulder and your earlobe. It's the very first thing. It's a very easy one. The second measurement I like the best is the measurement between your torso and your arms. Again, people who are very anxious, they tightly
Hi.
wrap their arms to their sides. They tend to penguin, where their arms never
I
leave their
love
sides,
that. Wait,
right?
wait.
And
Turtle, penguin, giraffe. We see the connection now.
oh my, maybe that was it. By the way, I just realized that they're two animals, and the next one I better make an animal for. I better think of it quickly. So, again, relaxing your arms and gesturing a little bit broader than your body, like having a little bit of space in here. It's why I always position my camera when I'm on video so you can see a little bit of my torso. It
Yeah,
just
I should.
signals I'm relaxed, you know? I want to see more of your torso, Paul. Like, where is it? Where's your torso? We got to
Da, da,
see it.
da.
I'm just joking. I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. And the last one you can't see, this is only for in person, is the distance between your feet, right? So again, think of like a little girl being nervous. She presses her legs tightly together, even crosses her legs over the other. That indicates she's not firmly planted. So we like people who have a nice firm plant. That also makes you feel more stable.
Makes sense to me. Makes dollars and cents to me. Let's talk about. Let's talk about, and we're. I know your time is super valuable. We'll wrap up shortly. So you talked about charisma for introverts, which I think is absolutely fascinating. Let's go to the other side of extroverts because, and here's why I say it, because an extrovert, in my experience, is far more likely to go over the top and to blow people's circuits. We talk a lot about rapport. And one of the things that I teach my students and clients is rapport can be dangerous because if you're in rapport with someone and you're at a level 10, they're suddenly going to feel 10 and they're going to feel uncomfortable. So you have to be able to read them. So let's talk about this. How can an extrovert demonstrate charisma without blowing the doors off and terrorizing and overloading the people who are on the receiving end?
Okay, so extroverts have a social superpower. And their social superpower is that they get energy from people. And that is really amazing, but they have to learn how to hone it. So I'm actually going to give extroverts a very, very hard tip, but it's the most important tip for exactly preventing what you just talked about, which is mirroring and matching. Extroverts, since they love being around people, they tend to have more exuberance, they're more outgoing, they have high energy. And this can come out not just in actual energy, but the amount of words they use, the amount of time they speak, the volume of their words. Yes, extroverts, statistically speaking, speak on average louder than introverts.
I've been
None of
told.
those things are bad, but if you're speaking to someone who speaks more slowly, who uses less words, who uses less volume, who uses less gestures, you're going to blow them away. So, an extrovert, what you can do to hone your superpower is the very first thing I want you to do in the first few seconds of interaction is you are temperature taking. What volume is this person at? How fast are they speaking? Are they using lots of gestures like this? Or are they using very few gestures? And then it's like a thermostat. You're not going to match them completely because that would feel unnatural to you. But I
Correct.
want you to dial down if they're down or dial up if they're up. It's specifically in gestures, volume, pace, and space, like how much space you're taking up. If you can match in those four areas, you are going to help them feel like they're on the same page as you.
Got it. Fantastic. Vanessa, you've provided so much value in such a short time. And I'm just going to say it. I don't say it often to guests. I personally think you're a genius. You're a genius
Oh.
and how you formulate. You're a genius. Look at you, like, no, accept a compliment. And you're a genius in how you communicate. And you also communicate tremendous warmth. You
Mm,
have a tremendous depth of knowledge. You're very brilliant, but there's no, you're totally relatable. I
mm,
have so many people I work with who are technically brilliant. They're very, I don't like the term left brained because it's a
mm,
way oversimplification. We know it doesn't work that way, but they're very digital. They're in their head, they're software programmers and engineers, and they just are so competent, but they don't know how to display that warmth. And you just seem to me to, of those two things, I'm almost done.
yeah,
Of competence and warmth, which
yeah.
one was the one that you had to put most effort into, and which one came most naturally to you?
Hmm.
I ask different questions, don't I?
Yeah. I think it's contextual. So, in this kind of setting, I had to learn warmth because I thought, oh, I have to blow them away with my competence. I have to use
Oh,
big words. I have to use lots of signs. I mean, my name in my company is Science of People. It's a highly competent name because I felt like I had to prove myself and I had to be impressive. An example of this from a business side is, the first draft of my first book was so competent. My editor sent it back to me and she said, Vanessa, this doesn't sound like you. And so in podcast learning settings, I was throwing my competence at someone to desperately hope they would rely on me. So I had to learn to bring in some of my natural warmth.
right.
I had to learn it to, oh, yes, I can be a human and also teach. I can share valuable information, but also talk about mistakes and talk about vulnerability and say I don't know. So in this setting, I had to bring in the warmth. And then in social settings, I tend to be a people pleaser. So that's people pleasers are very high in warmth. They're overly warm. They say yes to things they shouldn't say yes to. And so in social settings, I've had to work on boundaries, how to say no, how to stand firm, how to, as a mother, how to know what I know, how to really own my intuition and stick to it. So it's actually been both on both sides.
Cool. Well, I'm sure my audience would love to find out more about what you offer and your courses. What's the single best way that they can get in touch and find out more about what you offer?
Oh, I'm grateful. So, my website is scienceofpeople.com. I have a newsletter I write every week. I work very hard on them. Every newsletter is incredibly helpful and jam-packed. It's totally free. So, I'd highly recommend if you're open to it, go sign up to that. If you're more of a reader or a listener, I read my Audible books. So you could get cues. There's 96 cues to learn, just like learning a language. And then if you really want the advanced stuff, you're welcome to check out People School. That's our big flagship course. It's the 12 skills I always wish I learned in school on communication.
Vanessa, thank you so much. You've really honored me by being on the show. And I can't tell you how grateful I am because I know you're extraordinarily busy human and in huge demand. And you're a mom, which I don't know how you do that job alone. What to say, do everything you do.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's such an honor to be on. I love the work you do. I was super excited to see your lineup. And I also am very grateful to reach your tribe and your folks and to try to help in any way that I can. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Vanessa. We'll see you next time on the Influencer's Edge. Okay, give me 10 seconds.
Sure.
The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Invisible Influence Series. If you're ready to massively increase your sales by leveraging the power of subconscious persuasion, then make sure you text the word compel to 411321. That's compel to 411321. And if you're outside of the United States, then use WhatsApp and text the word compel to 1-909-741-1321. Make sure you put in your best email address because that's how we'll deliver the goodies. Thank you for tuning in to the Influencer's Edge, where you get the latest breakthroughs, cutting-edge insights, tools, and techniques so you can leapfrog over the pack at sales, influence, and persuasion. Remember to visit our website at www.theinfluencersedge.com to enjoy even more great episodes like this one. We look forward to seeing you again. on the Influencer's Edge Show.